Yeah.
I think you should ask Samur to repeat what he just said then, because I don't think it quite makes sense.
Theism is that.
How do you mean?
You said that just repeat what you said.
Atheism cannot provide the moral anchor and nor the conceptual framework for science to flourish.
But you said that theism could. You explained why theism.
So?
You said theism could.
Theism can. Because we believe God has given us a mind. We believe our mind is trustworthy. We believe in morals come from God. For example, truth.
That's tautological. So you say, okay.
Why are you squeezing? What's it got to do with morals? What science got to do with morals?
Okay, so I'll explain what science has to do with morals.
I don't understand. Why are you putting that into a tool that we use to understand the natural world?
Sure.
I don't understand.
Now, why do we want to understand the natural world? What's the reason behind it? Like, for example, coronavirus. Why are we looking for a cure?
Why do you asking me a question? Why we want to understand the natural world?
Yeah.
Right?
And for example, right now,
I think that's a silly question.
Why?
Because why would you want? It's a silly question.
Why?
Everything we know, you're recording because of science. You're talking on the phone with your family because of science.
Sure.
Why were you asking that question?
I'm asking the question because there's certain things that we take as granted, but it's nice now and again.
Now because you're used to this technology, but it had to have a beginning. It had to have someone, Edison, the telephone, or the light bulb, or whoever, you know.
Why is it wrong to question these beliefs? Like, we believe it's good to actually look for a cure for coronavirus. We believe it's good to do medicine. We believe it's good to understand the world. But my question to you is, why? Like, what is the reason behind that?
Why we believe? You ask me why? Say that again.
Okay, let me put it in simple terms. We want to, let's look at a concrete example. We want to be able to come up with vaccinations which are going to be effective against coronavirus. Okay? For instance, okay? What's the purpose behind this?
What's the purpose of?
This, looking for vaccines.
What do you mean?
Or anything else with medicine. Looking for cancer research. What's the purpose behind it?
To cure the problem.
Cure. Help people.
Reduce suffering.
Reduce suffering. Okay. And that... Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So reducing suffering is a moral virtue.
Okay, well,
so do you see why science needs morality? Do you see why?
So what?
Why is that a moral value?
Why reducing suffering?
Why would you use the word moral?
Okay, the reason why it's moral is because we believe it is good to save lives and it is bad that people are dying.
What about it?
That's not a definition of morality, though.
What about?
Oh, the definition of morality.
Well, you're saying why are you using the word moral?
Yeah.
Because it's good that lives are saved. That's why it's a moral issue.
What about if you?
No. You could just say that's a kind of philosophical choice. You could say that's a moral, but I'm asking why the word specifically moral.
Because good and bad are involved. If good and bad are involved, it's moral. And I believe with cancer research or anything in medicine is good and bad.
So what would
science, like for example, Nazis use science for bad purposes.
Is death bad and life good?
In relative terms, yes.
In relative terms,
yes.
So that makes it moral. But actually, of course, we need death, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
What about if you replace?
You're a very clever guy.
What about if you replace the word moral with well-being? It's about our well-being.
Yeah, again, that's a moral issue. Basically, what I was trying to get...
calling it moral. Why if you replace that moral with well-being?
It
Don't use the concept moral. It's about well-being. We all want to be well, right?
No, but...
Would you prefer life
yeah, but
over death?
that's again a moral virtue.
It's an empathy, though. That's a moral virtue, but it's not necessarily a moral imperative. It's a...
Good. I agree it's not a moral imperative yet. But we can show why moral imperatives exist. Okay?
So would you prefer life over death, right?
Yes.
Yes. Would you prefer to be would prefer to be healthy than sick?
Yeah.
So it's about well-being, right?
Yeah.
Science about making our life better, easier.
Yeah. Okay.
People are
Okay.
doing it for humanity.
Okay. But well-being is basically a veneer behind which you have moral anchorage.
Yeah, but
We believe in good. Look, let me ask you.
Scriptures have different morals,
Okay.
right?
Let me put it in a different way, Damien. Look.
Is Scripture moral? Is
It can
everything
be.
in your Scripture moral?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
You're gonna
Because
shoot
based
yourself in the foot.
based on my definition of morality, yeah. Now, do you believe the Nazis used science for immoral purposes?
Yes.
Okay. Conversely,
That doesn't
Oh,
mean
no,
science is bad.
no. I'm not saying science is bad. I'm saying conversely.
Can people use religion for bad?
Yes, they
things?
can. They can.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the Nazis use science for an immoral purpose.
Yes.
Their science can also be used for a moral purpose, and it shows that science does have morality behind it. Even the concept of truth. You believe in truth. I believe in
science itself.
Yes, it does.
It's humans using this tool. This. It's not a science. Doesn't. It's not. It hasn't got morality in it. Science is a tool, right?
For science to
you can
flourish.
Use that tool for various.
No, but
you can take a knife. You can cut your bread and meat. Or you can stab someone,
okay. Look,
right?
for science to flourish.
It's got no morality in it, right?
Look. For science to flourish, it has to have a moral anchorage. Like, for example, if you look at the earliest proto-scientists, they were about saving lives.
Necessarily into science. It's about you're injecting this moral framework.
Do you not see it?
Which is unnecessary, really.
It's not unnecessary because even for example, let me.
God agent into
No,
this
but
equation.
Damien, let me ask you.
Sneaky
Look, Damien, let me ask you a question. So, is it better to believe in something that's true than to believe something that's false?
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good. So, science is there to try and come to the best explanation of the world, and that is better than coming up with random hypotheses. Do you agree?
This is what religion does.
Okay.
This is what religion does.
Okay, but that's a distraction. Okay.
That's a truth. It's a fact, right?
Look, okay. So, the beliefs which are true, we hold them to be dearer than beliefs which are false.
Absolutely.
Correct. And if somebody has the choice of a true belief and a false belief, it's better for them to go for the true belief than the false belief.
It's right, but not everyone does it.
No, that's fine. Okay.
not.
So that
It's
means
not fine.
that means
That's the problem.
okay, Damien, I'm just getting to my
Yeah.
point. That means truth is good.
Of course.
Okay. That means for scientists to understand the world, to understand what is true, they believe in a
What is real,
they
right.
believe in a conception of the good. Do you understand? We believe truth is good.
Again, you are injecting that moral thing into.
Okay,
Why
it's there.
Why are you doing this?
Do you want to use ethics instead?
But ethics wouldn't exist without some form of morality.
No, but it's the same meaning. Really.
No, but
Ethics.
what I was trying.
Morality and ethics is, I've just kind of looked up the definitions, it's pretty much the same. But why use it? I think moral.
But do
is
you know why
more- ethics has that more of a human vibe, hasn't it? And morality has more of a religious vibe.
It does have. It's a concept.
Not necessarily. I mean,
But you're right.
say for
a
example,
code of-
virtue ethics of
code of-
Aristotle.
It's a code of conduct
remember-
based on
Moral.
choice between rights,
Yeah.
good and
So
bad.
so
right?
let's look at into a first thing. Yeah. Firstly, for morality,
Is morality subjective or objective?
we believe it's objective. Yeah. For morality to exist.
Interpretation.
Yeah. So morality to for society to be moral, it has to believe in or morality exists outside of us. Number two, it has to believe that.
Hang
That's a big
on.
jump.
How do you know that?
Okay.
Demonstrate
That's a big
that
jump.
morality as a concept.
Sure. Yeah. You know already. So, if morality is,
That's an if. I'm not interested in
You
if.
did
By the
say
way, you know
it has
all-
to, no, you did say it has to be
No,
from
but Damien-
outside.
Again,
you said it has to be from
Yeah.
outside. Why does it have to be?
Yeah, sure.
It's an assumption.
sure, I'm going to answer that. But first, here, the reason why I say if is because as a thinker, you always have to come up with conditionals and antecedents and these types of things. You
Again,
just
it's
have
an
to.
if. It's an if something.
Yeah, but that all of science and
We don't
philosophy
know
and
that, you don't know that.
look, all of science and philosophy is based upon ifs and hypotheses and these types of things to be able to test. Okay. Now, you said, why does it have to be something outside of us? Okay. If it is something not outside of us, then it will be purely subjective. So, for example,
Can I say that you could have two different societies with moral conduct but different definitions about what's good or bad.
That's why it's subjective.
It's
not
still
objective.
it's still morals and it's still a decision of good and bad. It's still ethics. But what you're saying is that to have a unified agreement between those different societies would need something outside of us. Is
Yeah,
that what you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Because
And-
otherwise it's not objective.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So here's three options that people usually give when it comes to, they don't want to believe in God being the moral anchor, so they'll come up with three types of things. They'll say it's either due to society. It's society, culture, which tells us what is right, what is wrong. Number two, they'll say is biology. They'll say the way that we evolved, our natural dispositions. Or the third is, they'll just say it is what it is. They'll say essentially the position of moral realism. Morality just is. Okay? Now, the problem with the first one is if we existed in the Dark Ages and there was all types of things where, you know, there's a woman who's been, it's been claimed she's a witch, and, you know, if she drowns, then she's innocent or something like this. You know, they had all these types of things. I'm not sure exactly, but you get my point. So if all of society believed that was fine, then we would say, if we believed in subjectivity and this type of cultural relativism, we would say, yeah, it's fine. But of course, that's absurd. Second one is biology. The problem with biology is, well, if we look into human nature and a purely naturalistic understanding, then our morals, just like the fact that we have 5 fingers rather than 4, is just as arbitrary as what we believe rape to be wrong, and having consensual sex in marriage and these types of things is good. All of these types of things would be purely subjective to the evolutionary processes. So that's why we can't use biology either. So moral realism just essentially is, okay, you have to justify it. Okay, why is it real? Now, without objective morality, we're going to have the problem, John, we're going to have the problem that you highlighted, which is two societies have two different sets of morals and there's no way of adjudicating between them. But the reason why, Damien, this conversation started is because I was trying to show science needs a moral anchorage, a moral underlying reinforcement, or without it, you basically have nothing. You have no imperative to do science. You have no reason to do science.
What's wrong? Why would you think that? So science is to improve our well-being, to improve our way of life.
Which is a moral issue.
You are making it a moral issue.
No, it is. It is a moral
I
issue.
don't see it that way. Why? Technology is you know, you can use technology for good and bad. I mean, it's just technology.
But to develop technology, you would need to have an understanding of the world. Okay? Yeah. And you would need to believe that the understanding of the world is better than a misunderstanding of the world.
Not believe. You need to demonstrate that it is. There's no
say
belief.
knowledge is better than ignorance.
Yes.
Okay.
So, hence why we believe we would have essentially.
Which isn't necessarily that would be the good and bad. Knowledge is good, ignorance is bad.
Exactly. Which is a moral issue.
In a way.
We've had some concession. Okay, that's good. Look, the reason why this conversation essentially started, we're talking about God. We're talking about design. Now, for me as a believer, you know, there's a part of your brain that if you have toxins in your blood, your brain does this blood test, and if it realizes there's this toxin, it could be poison, it could be whatever, you actually throw up. So your brain is there to help you save your life, essentially, right? And there's many very interesting parts of human development. Just look at the way that if you get a cut, and the way that, so we would say it's design, right? And I want to know from an atheist, why is it not designed?
Because it comes from evolution. That's the best.
No, but again,
that we can demonstrate.
No, but you already agreed with me.
Demonstrate anything.
No, but you look. Okay, for example.
Can you demonstrate to us that God exists?
Okay, look.
Can you demonstrate?
I just used
to
it. I
us-
just used an argument for God's existence, which is a design argument.
Can you demonstrate that God exists?
Do
And
you-
if
do
you
you-
can, is your God better than
No, okay,
than
wait.
a Jewish God?
I can give you rational reasons why there is a God. If you mean by demonstration, like a test tube, some sort of test, and to
I
show.
don't know.
No,
You'd have to come up with it
No.
another way. What method is that? It's the onus is on you. You are claiming that a God
no,
exists.
the onus is on the person who is
You are
no.
claiming the burden
The
is on
onus
you.
the onus is on the person who is making the counterintuitive claim.
No,
Because
listen,
what you're saying, okay.
You are making a claim that God exists. Demonstrate to an
So-
atheist is someone who doesn't believe in a God. That's
Okay,
it.
sure. So let.
I'm not saying that God
Okay,
doesn't
so
exist.
we're looking at. Well,
I'm saying.
you did say that earlier.
I don't believe in a concept of God.
Okay.
I never said I'm 100% sure that God exists. That a God doesn't exist.
By the way, that's usually
There are atheists
who say that.
who say that, and atheists in general don't believe in a concept of God. That's it. You come to me talking about God. It's the onus is on you to demonstrate to me that a God exists.
So when I
Can you do
use
that?
like the design argument, which I just did, then it's on you to respond to that. You can't simply say.
You're just making a claim.
No, I'm making an
a
argument.
claim.
I'm
You're just
making an
claiming
argument.
That, it can't be because it's so complicated. What you are saying to me, right? It's all so complicated. We cannot understand it. Therefore, God.
I never said we can't understand it.
Therefore, God.
No, I never said we can't understand
No,
it.
but that's it.
I actually said the opposite.
Okay, it's
Wait,
so
one second.
compli- it's so-
No.
so-
What I basically said. Let me repeat the argument, right? And I think this is why it's important to even look into what Darwin said about this, because Darwin didn't even see.
Science has moved on since Darwin.
Okay.
Right? We know that.
Yeah, of course it has. Now, Darwin didn't see his theory as necessarily atheistic. And that's again a common misconception that people.
It doesn't matter if it's theistic or it doesn't matter if you.
No, but you're
believe or
using.
not.
No, but you're using.
It's a fact that we can demonstrate.
It does matter, because if Darwin believes his theory is not atheistic, but you're describing it in an atheistic way, there's a problem.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Science, we can demonstrate that evolution is to the best of our understanding of that. We can demonstrate that evolution exists. It's true, right? It's the best model we have.
But we're talking about God's existence, and you gave.
You are talking about so.
No, what you're doing is you're explaining evolution in an atheistic way as an answer
the
to.
only way we
No,
have.
one second, as an answer to my design argument.
Then not-
And what I'm trying to show you is even Darwin would not have agreed with you.
It's the only way we can.
No, Darwin would have.
Science, not through religion.
Darwin would have said what Elliot
We don't know
Sober.
what Darwin would have said. He's dead. So let's leave him out
No, but
of the equation.
no, but
right?
we have his.
We have
look,
his moment, right?
what Darwin would have said, or what Elliot Sober and these philosophers of biology say, is that if you're going to use this as an argument for atheism or theism, then come up with something which is non-scientific, a rational argument for either case, rather than just hand-waving and saying evolution, atheism, therefore there's no God.
Can I ask one intervention?
Sure.
Sorry.
Intervention.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that all of those children and adults in Africa dying from malaria at such high rates over time, one of the biggest killers ever, is that good or bad in your moral code?
We believe any form of human suffering is bad, but we believe that life is a test. So there's good that happens to everyone, there's bad that happens to everyone, but
let's
it is part of God's
with
plan.
Good or bad, because you are a bit binary on your morality. So you believe it's bad that all of those babies dying from malaria in Africa?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. However, that is the will of Allah.
Yeah.
Are you saying the will of Allah is bad?
No, I'm not saying the will of Allah is bad.
just kind of
No.
seems-
Okay, so I'll give you an example.
But hang on.
What was
Why
it?
Allah? Why not?
Okay, no, but it's
One
second.
Why not?
It could be the Abrahamic God, which covers all three. Which
Broadens the issue, which is
Look,
unnecessary.
look. If you say the Abrahamic God, that is much more broad.
Yahweh.
Okay.
Yahweh. Yeah. Why not?
I'm
Yahweh?
not sure. I'm not sure what the origin of that word is. Okay. Now, what we would say is that everything is decreed by God. Right? Everything that happens by the will of God. And in this life, we will be tested by good and evil, and it's a test on the other human beings in terms of how they're going to help each other. So for example,
Can I just say
one
that,
second.
but what you're going into saying is that there's a fairly simple equation that in your mind, it's bad that children die from disease around the world in high numbers. But it is also God's will, which is only good. So and then you're going beyond morality of conduct of ethics of what's good and bad into explaining the contrariness of this by having the afterlife.
Yeah. You already know it.
But you can't. What he could say.
I'm giving you.
What he could say.
No, but
science in this world now does its best to reduce some suffering. Sometimes it's used
So we're trying
against
to
it.
reduce
But
God's
there's
will,
another
right? In a
life
way.
where science.
No.
There's another life where
No, because science.
God is the guy who created malaria.
No, but
Science is
science is
trying to.
hang on.
trying to make things
Science
better.
has to assume from the beginning there's good and bad, and God tells us to feed the poor. God tells us to look for cures. This life is a test.
Yes.
So this idea.
All suffering is coming from God.
That's right.
But from our perspective, we have coherency because of the
Where does
hereafter,
evil come from?
which we mentioned.
But you
Where does
don't
evil
know.
come from?
What do you mean?
Where does evil come from?
Evil
Where does
and
it come
good
from?
is part and parcel of God's plan.
God created everything, right?
Yes.
So He created evil, right?
God.
Can God destroy Satan?
Yes.
Why doesn't He do it?
Because He decreed life to be a test.
So He wants pain and misery. He wants
No.
people to die. That's His
No.
will.
But wait.
And science is against that. We don't want that.
But look again. What you're doing is
Can God
look.
take evil away?
Let's agree on something, right? If we're going to talk about theology here, and you're trying to pit theology, the Islamic theological framework, against science as if them two are compatible. That doesn't make sense. We can talk about this or we can talk about that. But at the moment, you're treating science like it's its own entity or religion.
Now you say we can talk either this, but you are putting the religious element into science.
No, but you're assuming But Damien, the problem is your assumption, which you said even earlier, that you see morality as a religious term, and it's not.
You are saying that.
No, you're the one who wasn't happy.
You're putting morality into science, but there's no need for morality.
No, but you didn't show me why I was wrong.
From your theistic point of view.
No, it's not even to do with theism.
Into science.
It's not even to do with theism. You need morality in order to have the moral imperative to look for cures,
God creates
to help.
suffering and pain, and science is trying to take that away.
Okay, so let's put it this way:
Simple as that.
for science to take
Science got better morals than your God.
That's true.
No. Wait. You just contradicted yourself. A few moments earlier, you said science has nothing to do with morality, and now you're talking about science as a Platonic form which has morals.
I'm playing your game now.
No, you're not.
So science is trying to make things better for humanity, whereas God is trying to make it worse for us.
No. Wait,
I think you can say
It's
that.
not helping us.
No. It's God wills to have all this suffering, and science is trying to reduce that suffering. More moralistic.
So science.
No, but that's a false dichotomy.
But so is a false dichotomy.
No, but do you agree it's a false dichotomy?
You had this principle of morality and internal morality and subjective morality, but the only way that works is with an afterlife.
Of course.
So we all got to
There's no
die
evidence
before
of
we know.
an afterlife.
about
You've never
now?
met anyone in an afterlife. You've got very little evidence. So it's just
No, but again, this goes back to the
the
conversation.
morality in this world, in this time, in this existence, is by the by, really, because it's always going to be about actually following God's rules to get to the afterlife. And of course, when you get to the afterlife, not everyone gets there. Some people who make mistakes are going to hell forever. So then you've got a new morality of good and bad, of heaven being good, hell being bad.
Okay,
Now you're stuck in your on your afterlife reality with an even greater dichotomy of suffering and pain.
Okay, so let's first deal with one issue at a time. I hope you agree with me that the idea of pitching science against God as the way that you explained it, as in science is trying to do this and God is trying to do this,
it's
that's
not
a
against. I've never
that
said
is a false
against.
dichotomy, right?
said
Well, it's a false
against.
dichotomy because the science is also Allah's will too.
Exactly, from our perspective, but also science is amoral.
You are making
Science
it a
does
religious thing. It's
science has to have
We're not just talking about science, we're talking about scientists.
no, but scientists have to be moral. But science as a system is something that can be used for good and bad. Do you understand this point?
Yeah.
The what, sorry?
Okay, let me break down each
Science is just
concept.
a method.
Let me
It's a tool. That's it, that's
look,
all it is.
let me break it down into very simple terms. Science is a method. The Nazis used it for bad. Today we're trying to use it for good. So it's amoral and it can be used for immoral or moral issues. However, in order to do science, you have to have certain beliefs. But those beliefs have to be anchored in something moral. Because I already explained to you. No, but I'll explain to you why. Because you have to believe truth is good. You have to believe saving lives is good. You have to believe reducing suffering is bad.
It's not belief.
That's
It's about well-being. We know. We
what's the difference between well-being?
It's not about moral. We've got a choice. You want to live or die.
Are you telling me? Are you telling me well-being? Are you telling me well-being is not a moral issue?
It's about well-being, right? Because morality is subjective.
No.
Your morality may be different to mine, right?
Wait.
Some people keep slaves. Some people say, "Oh, slavery is good." Some people say, "Oh, slavery is wrong."
So are you saying well-being is subjective?
Well-being is objective because we can.
And is it objective to help those people?
Because we, as we can come together and say, we can lay the foundation. I say, I don't want to hurt you, and I guess you won't want to hurt me.
The golden rule.
So this is we are defining what is objective in this well-being sort of frame, right? I don't want to kill you, and you don't want to kill me, right?
And the golden rule is the only
We want to be good, right? You want to be, like I keep saying, you prefer to be sick or than ill, right? So let's work together to make ourselves better.
I'm slightly confused because earlier you just
and we can make it an objective, whereas you coming from your stance is it's what you essentially are saying, that morality comes from a God. He gives us that morality.
no, but
right?
I'm confused. I'm confused with what you said. I just want you to clarify. You previously said morality is subjective.
It is subjective.
But you said we can come up with an objective system.
Yes.
How can you get?
We don't need an agent.
How
That's
can
what
you
I'm
get?
trying to say.
How can you get objectivity from subjectivity?
Because we can come to an agreement. You prefer life.
What
over death,
if
right?
someone says I disagree?
Then you're not going to be part of the society. right?
Hypothetically, say there's a consensus during the Dark Ages to burn women accused of witchery.
Because Islamic morals are different from Christian or Jewish morals, right?
So let's get back to
why
this point,
it's
Damien.
subjective.
How can you make?
We can make it objective because we can come to an agreement.
Okay, what if the other side disagrees?
Then he's going to have to look elsewhere. It's as simple as that. Two communities come together, two communities can clash. Let's leave a religion out of it, because let's say I don't want to hurt you, you don't want to hurt me. Good. Stamped. And it's objective because we prefer to
That wouldn't be objective.
It's our well-being.
Okay.
It's our agreement.
Let me
There's no extra agent
let me make
needed
a
for it.
let me make a example to help you understand this point. 1 + 1 is 2 is objective.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, me liking vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream is subjective.
Exactly.
Now, if morality is subjective, then it's just the same as ice cream, whether I like this thing or I don't like that thing.
It is subjective.
However, you spoke about objectivity.
We can make
and,
it
and
objective.
look, 1 second. All human beings, all the people in the park, if they say 1 + 1 is 5, it wouldn't take away from the fact that 1 + 1 is 2 is objectively true. Do you understand that point?
Yes, because obviously, the concept of morality is subjective, but we can make it objective. So we can come to, like I keep saying, we can come to an agreement, make it objective, right?
What would be the moral imperative to do that for anybody?
For our well-being, for us to improve our way of living. That's
Well,
all it is.
see, this is the problem. One group will say.
What do you mean subjective?
One group.
Do you prefer life over death?
1 second, Damien.
It's not subjective. What do you mean subjective?
1 second, Damien. So one group would prefer its well-being over the other. you will have intergroup conflict. They'll say our
Yes,
well-being,
well, then that group
and you'll have
will
like World War
eventually
II, where you had
exclude it. That's
one
it.
group, another group, and they considered their well-being better than others. I mean, the Nazis, they cared about well-being, but just for themselves.
And they came together to make it objective when they started invading every other country
Yeah,
and doing nasty things to them.
well, not objective, but you get the point.
Right, yeah,
It's
but
subjective for
In
them.
terms of, I think what he's saying is objective is some consensus agreement.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
I know, but that's not objective. That's the problem.
That's not objective. It's subjective.
We still look at it and go, no, that was wrong. So that's subjective.
Because of this morality that you're coming from is, all
Can we go back to the thing that we started with God's existence? Because that's the
Yeah,
real
you
crux
still
of
need
the
to
issue.
demonstrate that.
Well, you need to respond to my argument for the design of the brain or design of anything in nature.
You need to go to a brain specialist. He will explain to you what we.
No,
I'm not
but
in a
Damien,
position
but,
to-
but
He's
Damien,
just an atheist. He can only ask atheist questions.
Atheist, I just don't believe in the concept of a God. That's it.
okay.
I don't know more about biology
Okay,
than you.
but right in the beginning, you said you could justify your position. I'm justifying my position, but you're not
My
justifying
default
yours.
position, I won't believe until it's proven to be true. That's it.
Okay,
It's as
so
simple as that.
if somebody gives you a argument,
Demonstrate to be
do
true.
you respond to it by saying somebody else knows more than me and I trust them? Because that's what you're
You
doing.
cannot demonstrate to me that a God exists.
I can demonstrate to
You
you.
cannot do that.
I can demonstrate to you that design exists, and it's not difficult to see design in nature, and therefore there must be a designer. So I'm making a philosophical argument.
Then you need to go to a specialist panel, put in your whatever your
Input.
papers, and maybe you get a Nobel Prize for discovering something that we don't know.
Wait, hang on. Wait. How will I win the Nobel Prize for using the
Maybe-
design argument?
Well, if all the scientists are wrong and you're saying, oh, this
No, but
cannot be
again you're pitching the scientists against God. You're saying as if the science is all saying that there is no design.
Well, it's for them. It's for them to it's for them to
Fine, you
decide.
don't know is the answer. It's fine.
So,
You can't answer it.
I'm not saying to you, I don't know any more than you do.
No,
right?
he knows some of more than you do.
Well, according to you, it's from God, and I'm just saying, well,
I'm just making a
I
design
just don't
argument.
believe that.
I'm just making a design argument, and I think
But the
I think the
argument for
design
is a
argument.
well-known argument that theists make. It's been debunked.
Yeah, but wait, hang on, 1 second. For it's a well-known argument that's been debunked. How?
It's been debunked because you can't demonstrate that. It's all you're saying. It's complicated and it's all.
I think the difficulty is.
Wait,
you're
hang on,
throwing-
no,
you're throwing things out.
sorry, John, 1 second.
You can't.
How is it? How has it been debunked? You said that with certainty.
Come on, I need to get my. I need to
Again, you're going to,
refresh my. And I'll come back maybe next week.
Okay,
and
no,
I'll
come back next week.
prepare myself.
No, let's do this. I'll come back next week, Damien, right? I'll come back next week. Show me how it's been debunked, and let's carry on next week. Bring me anything. Bring me papers.
Okay, and I'll come back. Can you now demonstrate to me that a God exists?
My demonstration is by using a rational argument, and your response to the rational argument is you're going to come back next week and
So
you're going
your
to bring me
rational
something.
argument is
That there is design in nature, and behind design there's the designer.
which you can demonstrate by.
Gucci.
What do you mean?
Which you can demonstrate by. How can you demonstrate that?
By logically showing that behind design there's a designer.
But you're just claiming that. You're just
No,
saying
I
that.
made an argument.
That it's been designed by designer. Everything complicated has been designed by designer. The nature's designed by designer.
I'm making an argument which is
He's
well
making a
known,
claim. That's
which is that behind sophisticated technologies such as what we are using today, there is a brain that made those technologies. Every single thing that you see the complicated lights over there, you see the buildings, you see everything. Every single thing was an idea in the mind. What was the mind? Okay, but you know what? I'll say this. I often hear, and even in this park, oh, watchmaker. It's been debunked. Firstly, the watchmaker, even the term, this argument goes way before. And if someone is to say it's been debunked, then fine, explain to me. You can't just hand wave and say it's been debunked. But how?
I need to go back into the I'll have to come back next week.
Okay.
And I'll come back to you with everything. It's
Let's do
stuff
it.
that, I've been reading,
And that book sounds good as well.
so it's very good. Very good. And you know, you'll see what kind of technology we had before.
Next week.
Before even Islam, before religions.
Yeah.
You know, there's.
I mean, that's neither here nor there, but anyway, we'll have a chat.
Humanity wasn't stupid. You know, civilizations flourished.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's a lot of lost.
I agree with that. There's some recent device they discovered to do with. They call it the most ancient computer. It has these little dial type things.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
that was just a few days ago. I forgot where it was. It's quite old.
Yeah. It's.
But come back next week. We'll have a chat next week.
They called it a computer, but I think it was a device
It
to
wasn't
measure.
a few days ago. I thought that was the one.
Yeah.
That was
Amazing.
It's an old, yeah.
like in the last 50 years.
It's come up again.
It's come up
media,
again.
on YouTube. It's
I saw a news article about
Maybe
it. I
it's
thought
something else. Maybe we.
there was this thing that they said was landmark. It wasn't like old. It was like, it was discovered a long time ago, but it wasn't interpreted.
Well, they did X-ray.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it.
same thing,
That's
yeah.
it.
But
Yeah.
it was discovered. But even those X-rays were some time ago.
Yeah. Okay. And it just shows that the ancients were pretty damn clever.
they were
As clever as you.
No, way cleverer. I mean, they didn't spend all day on their phones scrolling.
Yeah.
Oh, brother. I did.
Yeah, no, I was listening. Man. Hope you don't mind.
No, you're just on your phone. I was trying to give the example of people using their phones mindlessly.
It's your moral directive not to throw away your smartphone and get a normal, like an old phone.
I should do that. I mean, just on the way here, I was looking up some stuff about dopamine, and there's some very interesting stuff. So I should really know the study, but somebody watching this, they can Google it. You know, they gave mice the ability to give themselves pleasure.
Yeah.
You know, and you know about this, yeah? They just kept giving themselves pleasure till they died. Yeah, that's
Our life. Yeah.
and we're doing that. You know, our reward system, in the past, you had to go in effort to get a reward. Now you just reward yourself with scrolling and dopamine stuff.
I think this is it's not often discussed argument. We do talk in this part a bit about dopaminergic addiction, but fundamentally dopaminergic addiction is looking for that stimulus all the time, yeah? Outside of ourselves. And what's the antidote?
I think it's to keep your dopamine levels not too low, not too high. So it's like maintaining them through detoxing and other types of things.
And any other kind of so there's a sustainable kind of approach to dopamine that would be beneficial. But the other one is meditation.
Yes, or to bore yourself.
To bore yourself.
Yes.
Well, you know,
Yeah. It's
I
interesting.
think the thing is
If you
that
bore yourself,
your
you bring your
mind
threshold
will keep you interested. Whereas with meditation, if you're not following those kind of thoughts, then you are kind of not kind of getting the hit of like this negative thought, this positive thought, whatever, and you're bringing yourself back to instead of the outside world, that internal world. So I think that would be, and of course, I think that there's similarities between that and prayer, but obviously you do get that dopaminergic hit through your worship of God.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And that's very interesting. It's not that dopamine is necessarily bad. It's just the way that we do it. Yeah, there's some very interesting things. If you look up dopamine brain scans, so they've done scans of people's brains, and when they get a lot of pleasure, they have it red, less pleasure, yellow.
Brain lit up, I know.
Yeah. So what they've shown is that people who have addictions, right, could be cocaine, could be even lotteries. You know, it's surprising. You see them everywhere. You know, and winning. The whole idea of the lottery is it's a tax on the mathematically illiterate. Yeah? It's literally the dumbest thing you can imagine in society. Or the superstitious.
Same
right?
thing goes with traders.
But their brains actually get damaged over time.
Magical thinkers that think that they will be the one.
It's my day, that kind
Anyway,
of thing.
yeah, go.
So what happens with the brain is if you keep giving it pleasure, keep giving it what it wants, right? You will simply blunt the dopamine D2 receptors, and you will not be able to feel as much pleasure as before. So living a life
With drugs.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what happens over time is you basically become a vegetable. Your dopamine levels are so low, even though you're doing everything everything that's possible to try and increase your pleasure. So living a life which is restricted, living a life which is structured, living a life which is, you know, a little bit boring, it can actually be healthy for you.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about morals, we're also talking about this system, the dopaminergic system, aren't we? Because we're talking, it's a reward system. So you get there, you press the mouse, presses the button, you look at your Twitter or whatever. This is the reward system that keeps that activity going, and it's basically that system is the reward system to get reward from this existence here, isn't it? Rather than, and I guess that's where, as I say, with meditation and deeper meditation, is that effectively you're rejecting the temporal, short-term rewards from the outside world to get that enlightened joy that can only be through enlightenment.
Do you think it's...
You meditate?
Oh, really? So, because what I was thinking is, I don't see that as too different to boring yourself. Because when you're boring yourself, right, say you decide to do nothing, right, you're basically... No, but actually, it's actually good for you. Boredom is actually good for you. It actually... I'll give you an example. We all have children...
So busy with good things rather than just being bored.
No, but that's what leads to addictions too.
Yes, more reward. Chasing.
Well, I mean, depends what you call good. I mean, people usually wake up first thing, start scrolling through your phone, before sleeping, scrolling through your phone. Essentially what you're doing is, if you imagine every single time you check your phone, you're taking a spoon of sugar, right? And in the past, you know, you'd have to put in a lot of effort to get berries and foraging and this type of thing. Now we get instant sugar hit. Throughout the day, if you keep taking that sugar, you're going to get diabetes. That's essentially what's happening. And you know, this is such a big area, and I'm surprised not a lot of people are talking about it. It's killing society. Yeah. So you were saying?
No, I agree, but you know, it's I'd say it's even, like I say, my argument would be even for more so that seeking in the world for that reward is still kind of reducing the self-generated reward that our mind-body can produce through meditation.
I mean, the way I see it is, say you've got children who are watching a movie or they're playing PlayStation or whatever, and they're right into it. Their dopamine levels are like super high. When you grab that child and you switch it off, it's bedtime, what happens? They go berserk. They go ape, yeah?
Tell me about it.
The reason is because you've taken them from that high dopamine to basically where they're not getting it. It's not too dissimilar, although it's an extreme case with heroin addiction. It's not too dissimilar to a withdrawal symptom, because that's what's happening with them. They're getting this hit. You know, they're taking that heroin, and then they feel like, you know, they get all these feelings, and then they go back to the normal world. That's why.
So what's the answer?
Well,
what's the antidote?
Okay, there's a few ideas I have, but no concrete. Nothing.
Which is why religion was the opium of the masses, considered the opium of the masses.
Well,
because of the same, it still has that potential. Now you might argue it's the good thing to get addicted to, right? That would be your argument. But nonetheless, it becomes a bit of an addiction to basically worship and, you know, have that kind of salutation and that kind of aspect, to change people's minds, to capture people's souls, to feel right in what they're doing. You know, it has all that dopaminergic benefits.
Yeah, and it's not, like you said, it's not necessarily that we need to think of it in a bad sense. People who are addicted to human rights issues, they're also on this type of good dopamine. They believe they're changing the world. They believe they're doing something good. The problem is when these other types of things that have come in the 21st century, which give us such high dopamine, but they really damage our brain. When you look at now you looked at the solutions. One of the solutions is awareness to what's happening to your biochemistry. That's one of the solutions, because once you know you're taking sugar in all day when you're scrolling your phone, you're making yourself sick, you're going to get diabetes. So the first thing is knowledge. The other thing is to have a dopamine detox. Now I tried this, it's actually very difficult. Like you get off your phone for a number of hours, you do these.
Or try forgetting your home your phone at home when you go out. Try to do that.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
It's like losing an arm.
Losing an arm, exactly. Another thing is if you have a meeting, say you have your friends coming over time you'll realize everyone takes out their phone. So what you do is you have a little basket, and when everyone walks in they have to leave their phone there. And every now and again you'll find someone reaching for their pockets and stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting at Speaker's Corner, people aren't, maybe we're getting our dopamine rushes
Well, I
here.
think it is.
Oh, there they are.
It's a different kind of reward, isn't it, in the sense of discussing things that aren't perhaps discussed through the week. So it's kind of, it is an addiction in itself,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
To be in your role as well. You are given opportunity to utilise your mind in substantial mind
Yes.
in the argument for religion and the deconstruction of other alternatives. You
Yeah.
know, but as you say, it's another question to say what's good or bad and what's healthy.
I also think that the way that we look at productivity from a capitalistic framework, usually the types of activities we had, say, 20 years ago, they were moderate to the level that they wouldn't disrupt your working life. You'd go home, you'd watch TV or whatever. But now it's come to a point where it's affecting efficiency. You go to the petrol station and the person's on their phone and they don't notice you're there. Like, this inefficiency is built at every single level. Children, you're trying to teach them Pythagoras, a squared plus b squared, and they're thinking about flying high in Minecraft or whatever. So it's actually making people really stupid.
Wait for the metaverse.
Oh yeah, that's going to be good. People are just going to...
The end. So how do we know we're not in the metaverse now, Zabur?
Oh, right. One of those.
We got the Matrix to remind us about it coming out in a week's time.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're headed in a very dark place.
You know, with
this stuff.
you were saying earlier that knowledge.
We can see it, Damien. We can see it. Look at what children are doing. They're on, like, children don't even talk to each other anymore. They're on phones all the time.
Saying that knowledge,
Probably WhatsApping each other.
Knowledge is better than ignorance.
Yeah.
Is that always the case? Is that always the case?
But what's our knowledge?
I like that. I'll give you an example, right? So, what's his name? Oh man, there's this philosopher who wrote a paper on this, right? So, it's about truth, trivial beliefs, comfortable false beliefs, and this type of thing. So, if, say, that guy over there who's smiling, right? That guy over there is smiling, right? He's happy, he's smiling, this type of thing. If I go up to him and say to him, by the way, you do know that your body has already, by your age, which is 40 plus, right? Has already probably had some cancer cells that came and were destroyed. And I started explaining to him everything that could possibly go wrong in his body. You would actually live a very depressed life.
Not necessarily. You might think I'll stop eating, things like bacon and other kind of cancerous types of food.
There is that, but also there's certain...
And other cancerous, the fact that they're putting nitrate.
Yeah, but what I was trying to get to is sometimes it's better to
Ignorance
have...
is bliss.
Sometimes, because there are some really harsh realities of the world, which if everybody knew, like for example, there's this discussion about whether knowledge is intrinsically valuable or instrumentally valuable. So this philosopher gave the example of threads in a carpet. Like, is it intrinsically valuable to know the knowledge of how many threads are in a carpet? Right? And obviously the answer is no. Who cares? Who cares how many there are?
In our sheets, it says 600 thread sheets, so we know on our sheets.
But would somebody sit there and count it and, this type of thing? No, they wouldn't. There's also the idea of comfortable false beliefs. That sometimes people have these false beliefs. Some people argue today, who happen to be atheists, that those false beliefs are human rights. That
Atheism is not a belief.
I'm saying atheists.
It's not a belief.
I'll give you an example. Yuval Noah Harari, in his book *Sapiens*, right? He's obviously anti-religion, doesn't believe in Judaism, that was his form of faith. But he also says liberalism, feminism, human rights. He says these are all fictions, just like religion, because from his atheistic perspective, there is no grounding behind any of these ideas. However, I would much rather meet an atheist who's under the delusion that human rights exist than someone who actually believes like you are Noor Hariri that those are fictions. I'd much rather live in a world where he has that false belief from his system.
You want a nice, safe world.
Yes, I
that's
do.
your intention, isn't it?
Yeah.
And does Islam say that taking a drug like DMT is haram?
In Islam, drugs are haram.
So, ibuprofen, paracetamol.
Okay, yeah. For to call anything haram
Yep.
is I mean, alcohol we would say is haram, or heroin, or these things are clear.
So drugs are haram.
Usually, but there are for medicinal purposes. People can take them. DMT, I'm not. Wait, there's a guy.
So there's a clause.
Is it pretty haram? The brother's saying it's pretty haram.
haram?
I'm not saying it's haram.
So what?
But from what I know, it seems quite. I mean, if someone takes it for recreational purposes, that seems pretty haram.
So
But
what
for maybe
about ayahuasca, which is accessing DMT through a shamanic ritual?
I think that would be.
Medicinal for the spirit. That's
So,
what they
so the
would
thing
say.
is, look, in the chat section, people watching this, I don't want to say something.
Hi chat section.
Yeah. Someone can post links about whether it's halal or haram, but myself,
They claim they've got the right version.
from my understanding, from what I've looked into it, and that's not on a deeper level, for a purely recreational point of view, drugs like DMT would be haram.
Well, no, it's not necessarily recreational, is it? So if your desire was to reduce your ignorance of the mind by taking a psychedelic, that's not recreational. That's knowledge.
They are the biggest exporter of heroin to the world.
You're a smart guy. I've never heard that before. But the thing is,
That's where they grow heroin.
why not stick to the normal routes of knowledge rather
Why
than
not
this?
keep it safe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, is that I think that's the...
And people have horrific reactions to taking these things.
So there's a risk, yeah? There's
Huge
a risk,
risk.
yeah.
There's a guy here. He was before. He actually knows a lot about DMT, and like he's done this stuff before he converted to Islam. But